Thank you, Dr. Gallo, for joining us for this interview. Appreciate it. You've been on the job now for 2 weeks as the interim superintendent. I know school's not in session yet, but what have you observed so far, be it the central office or talking to teachers, talking to parents? What have you observed so far in the last 2 weeks that you want to tackle or change when the school year begins?
That's a difficult question to answer. I have spent the 2 weeks mostly with teachers in their professional development sessions and with principal leaders in their learning sessions, full day events. I think the biggest challenge for me was picking up morale. It seems all summer long they've been hearing rather negative things. We have a school to open and 24,000 children to welcome. We have buildings to make sure they're clean and ready. So all this takes a lot of coordination, a lot of effort, and everyone's wondering, and what else is going to happen to us? So I think it's been a matter of reassuring everyone, of mobilizing people, of showing off the good shine we have in most of our schools. Schools are clean. We're doing our best to be fully ready. If you ask me today, are you ready tomorrow? No, we're still not there, but we are inching closer and closer.
And are you confident that you will be ready for the start of the school year?
Yes, I am.
At this point, do you think there are any schools that you think should not open or would not be ready to open by September 3rd?
No, at this point, no. We should be definitely ready. Again, not everything's new, but the old things are still there, but they're clean.
You told us the night that you were appointed by the school board, you said, I'm going to turn it upside down. Can you be more specific about that? Is there any?
I would love to be more specific.
Policies you're going to put in place
Yeah.
in your short 90 days as superintendent before the state takes over?
Yeah. So what I said about being upside down, turning it upside down, was turning central office upside down, making sure that central office became the actual servant of the schools, of the teachers. Any policies we come up with, any difficult issues at the schools that get referred to central office can't be resolved in central office. Central office needs to come out to the schools. We need to understand the issues, and we need to help resolve every issue. So turning upside down was not turning the system upside down, not turning teachers' work upside down, none of that. It was about truly becoming servants of the people that employ us. And that is our schools, our teachers, our principals, most importantly, our families and children.
Here's a question. Should there even be a central office in terms of a physical location, or should those employees all work in the schools, including yourself?
Until such time as we really have state-of-the-art facilities, I would not take one office and put it in the school. The schools are needed by the children. We currently have social workers who share an office. Well, if you've got 2 or even 3 social workers in one office, how can you provide private individual counseling to children? They need to have their own space. And so I'm actually pulling people back into central office where there is space. Is it beautiful space in central office? No. Does every room have a window? Absolutely not. And so there's a lot of pushback from the people that I'm pulling back in, like, but this is beautiful space and I have windows. And my answer is yes, but the children need it. The students, whether they're little children, young children, or they're college ready, we have to have space for our students where they feel welcome, supported, and appropriately dealt with.
There's been a lot of focus this summer on those school buildings and whether they are up to snuff for what students need. It's sort of dominated the conversation this summer, the condition of the buildings, whether they're clean, whether they're pest-free, whether they're in condition for students to learn. Do you think that has overpowered, that conversation about the condition of the buildings has overpowered the talk about actual learning and academic outcomes and how that's going to improve?
It's definitely overpowered every discussion, especially the first few nights after I was appointed. No matter who I spoke with, it was the building, the building, the building. and to explain that you've got 100-year-old buildings and there's always going to be an issue. Regardless of now presently the money coming in to make immediate fixes and the long-term money coming in over the next 10 years to make enormous fixes, we're still talking 10 years. And I'm still talking school practically tomorrow. So it does make a big difference.
What are you doing? And again, you're only going to be in this position for 90 days, but what can you do to improve the academics and the learning that's happening at the school before it is turned over to the state?
You really can't learn if your mind is occupied with other things, if you're feeling beaten down and vulnerable. And my job, as I see it, over the next few weeks, as we open schools, is to help everyone understand the effectiveness of instruction. So we're going to try to make everyone feel much more comfortable. I'll be speaking with the teachers and encouraging them as much as I can on a voluntary day when I hope to see as many as possible. I don't know if they'll all come, but they're all welcome, more than welcome. I urge them to come because we have a very positive message we want to deliver. Certainly on those first few days of school when the children come, they need to see us all ready to greet them, ready to learn who they are, their dreams, their aspirations, and then we're going to dig in to actually looking at the social emotional elements of learning. So being responsible, being accountable, but how does that happen? It doesn't happen overnight. And understanding what their home life is like, understanding what their current boyfriend-girlfriend situation is like when they're older. These are the things that impact their learning in the classroom. So the more we can spend that time in the beginning to become a family, to share our issues and our ideas, to really want to be together, learning everybody's name. And you know, a teacher doesn't automatically know everyone the first day, but within those first 2 weeks, even the high school teachers who have 100, 120 children, they will know their names because we're going to take the time to form that valuable family connection.
What would you say is the number one thing that keeps you up at night?
Nothing keeps me up at night, I'm sorry.
You're not.
I sleep very well.
There's not one thing that you are just most worried about that you can't stop thinking about when you go home?
It's not a worry that keeps me up because I have
something you worry about.
Because I happen to have a prayer life. I don't spend time worrying, but I will tell you that there are certainly major issues. I worry about every child and where they put their head at night. We have over 300 homeless families in Providence alone. So I care about them. And I'm thinking, what can I do to make their life better? How can I help diminish the sofa surfing? And that's if they're lucky enough to have a sofa. We visited, Dottie Smith and I visited today at the Leviton complex. And Hasbro, wonderful, like 60, 70 volunteers from Hasbro are there today painting the inside, the outside, the handrails on the way in matter of, and I was only there for about a half an hour, 40 minutes. In that short period of time, it was such a different place. But as we were walking out and as there were like nooks and crannies and you could look outside, I stopped short because I saw what looked like personal belongings. And so I asked the principal, I said, I said, is that what I think it is? And she said, well, we do have homeless in the area, and sometimes that is where they are. And, you know, it breaks your heart. And they're right in the part of the school building is here, the other part of the school building is here, and as children are walking, they're going to see that. The door covering like a broken cement piece that makes it look like you could rest inside. A basket that belongs to one of the department stores with all things in it. They're going to see that, and it's a difficult sight to swallow.
And how can the district help those students that are homeless?
Well, we begin with care. Our community group Janet Pachado and her staff really connect. They make connections with all the different agencies, trying to literally find them appropriate housing, trying to find them support. It's the best we can do, and we'll keep it up. We need more staff. We need more volunteers. That's another thing that keeps me up at night, this interpretation of the volunteers. We do have a strong volunteer policy.
Yeah, the ACLU sent you a letter.
Correct.
And they want to change that policy.
Correct. And they came to the school board meeting last evening. And, I need to really review that policy. But in the meantime, I know that I can put out a very clear interpretation of that policy, as I heard last night from Miss Lally, that it was never intended to keep people out to the extent that it seems to have been promulgated and practiced.
And so our viewers understand the ACLU opposes this policy that, if I understand it correctly, requires background checks for volunteers in the schools, which could exclude a lot of parents who want to volunteer and help the schools, correct?
Correct, that's the way it seems. So I have to read the policy more thoroughly, but in listening last night to Ms. Lally, we learned very clearly it was never intended for visitors, parents who are coming in wanting. I just finished a letter inviting them all to the schools to come and see, to take the first 2 weeks to come and tour your schools, to help all of the angst diminish for the parents. And principals were saying, "Oh no, Dr. Gallo, you can't do that." And I said, I just did, so yes, I can do it. I did it, and they are welcome. And they were, no, they need a BCI check. No, visitors do not need a BCI check. They're not going to be alone with children. The Rhode Island law says unmonitored individuals must have a BCI check. We're not planning to leave people alone with the children. The children will always be our number one priority for safety, for their well-being. So those are the things that I need to make clear to everyone. And even with a background check and a criminal record, that doesn't mean you can't come in our schools. The criminal record has to be something along the lines of pedophilia or rape, things like that, that would definitely preclude the safety of our children.
So you want to be clear that parents are welcome.
Absolutely.
Why did you take this job? You were enjoying a nice retirement from your previous role as you were Central Falls Superintendent before you retired. So why come out of retirement for 3 months and take on what is a difficult and busy job?
A, to make sure I could still do it. I'm not so much on the shelf that I can't come back. And B, because I felt I left Providence Schools wanting at that time very much to have stayed, and the job wasn't finished. So I thought I can get that much closer to getting the job more appropriately ready for the next person.
So that was still on your mind. You had left Providence Schools, you went to Central Falls, you retired, but you were still thinking, I have more work to do in Providence.
Yes.
When you were the superintendent of Central Falls Schools, you put out this turnaround plan. It was opposed by the union. You laid off all the high school teachers, and then you did eventually reach a deal with the union, and you hired them back. Do I have that history correct?
Yes.
And
they all received their little pink slip, but at that time, you had to notify them all by February, and so there was the March 1 deadline. That has since changed, because if I had had more time to continue to meet with the union, I'm assuming our negotiations would have come to a better fruition. But because there was that drop-dead deadline and our options under the President Obama's regulations were clear, then I had no choice but to go ahead.
Do you see yourself butting heads with the Providence Teachers Union at all during your tenure? Do you think that anything, now certainly in terms of big changes, those would likely come from the commissioner when the state takes over, but do you see anything between you and the union? No?
No, I don't see that at all. We may hit heads if something comes up with an individual that I need to take immediate action with, and there may be a disagreement. But there would be no cause in any way, from what I know from the teachers I've renewed acquaintances with and some that I've just met. They are the most phenomenal teachers in the state of Rhode Island, and I think people need to know that.
Are there enough teachers right now, or do you have any staffing issues going into the school year? Are you
Yes,
staffed
we have
up?
staffing issues.
What are they?
So if this can help, that would be great. We have 84 vacancies as of today. 40 some are all related to English language learners. And the others are a mixed group from elementary through high school, and especially in those hard to fill areas, science, math, those types of things. So I'm really hoping to put out a call to anyone with a college degree who's thinking they want to be a teacher. This is an opportunity. Get that application going, bring it over to Providence Schools, and we definitely will be supporting emergency certification for the hard to fill areas. And ESL is a hard to fill area. And we'll sign that, we'll get them in school, provide the proper supports, and then continuous employment can follow. We're especially looking for people of color, and we're especially looking for dual language speakers.
So school starts in 2 weeks. How fast can you hire someone, provided they're qualified for the job? How fast can you get them in there?
I think we can do that very quickly. We have a large staff ready to go in human resources, and we all know exactly what we're looking for in the application. And again, even as a substitute, we're hoping to put building-based substitutes in place, which will end that comment we heard all summer long of my teacher had 9 teachers, or my child had 9 teachers, or my child had 11 teachers. If we have building-based subs, then we'll be fortunate enough to put that sub in that room for a lengthier period of time.
And so you need people to apply for those positions
Yes,
as well.
and those positions need a 2-year degree. So if you've been to the community college and you have a 2-year degree and you're interested, we're also exploring avenues for our own teacher assistants. I'm looking to see how many of our teacher assistants have a degree, have a 2-year degree, and could qualify as a substitute, so that we can really begin to build a pipeline of learning. So even people who want to become a teacher assistant, if they can pass the particular test for the teacher assistants, they can come in and we can continue the pipeline and build a teacher pipeline for Providence Schools.
So what are you doing? What do you do in the meantime? You need 40-some ELL teachers. If you don't hire all of those, what do you do in the meantime? Is there going to be a teacher who has more students than you'd like?
No, I think it's a matter of putting substitutes in the classroom until such time as we can get who we need. It'll be very difficult. We do anticipate, because we have some applications that have already come in, that's going to diminish in terms of the 84 number, but nevertheless.
Hiring 84 in 2 weeks seems like a stretch.
Right, but some are already in that pipeline. So I'm thinking that it's going to be more around the 40 people number that we need.
Okay. My final question for you. As we discussed, you're in this job for a temporary basis. The state is planning to take over the school district sometime later this fall. The commissioner, Angelica Infante-Green, is going to install her own superintendent. Do you have any advice for that person?
Be kind, be confident, act smartly, and always with dignity. I think if you respect everyone, they definitely will respect you. It starts with kindness.
That is some good advice. Thank you, Dr. Gallo, so much
It's a
for
pleasure.
joining us. We really appreciate it.